world-class sales training for other couples. Mainey he also is the founding director for Sales Transformations LLC, where they introduce businesses to more effective and efficient ways to target and stimulate revenues to other companies as well. Ryan is here today to talk to us about team leadership and dynamics, so please join me in welcoming him today.
Awesome. Well, good evening. Happy Thursday, everybody. All right, yeah, we're getting closer to Friday. We're getting closer. There's more energy in the room. That's good. That's good. So hopefully that nobody signed up for Death by PowerPoint. That's not how I roll. And hopefully you guys are up to it and willing to contribute a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to share some best practices around team leadership and dynamics and putting teams together. To expand a little bit on what Xavier's talking about, just to give you a little background on me. So those are some of the companies I've worked for. The Sales Transformation LLC that Xavier mentioned is something that I do personally, working with small to mid-sized medical practices to help doctors better understand how to run their practices and drive revenue streams. So, but the biggest thing about me is that I love sales transformations. Love it. So, a little background about me is my dad was a sales guy, and so in the summers when I was off of school, I'd go carry my dad's stuff around all day, and then about 2 or 3 o'clock we'd go play golf. And so it was awesome. So I got exposed to sales at a very early age. But the thing that I love most about sales has nothing to do with the fact that I'm trying to schlep some product or get the sale or what are some of the analogies? Ketchup popsicles to a lady in white gloves, or sell ice cream to Eskimos. It's none of that stuff. What I love about sales is it's about helping customers make decisions that they're excited about. Okay? And that's when you think about leadership, in terms of performance leadership program here, that's what you guys do. In any of the facets that you guys get into what you're doing, whether it's in accounting or supply chain or if it's HR management, or even I've mentored some students for the PLP that are molecular biologists, for goodness sakes. So it has nothing to do with having to be in charge of a team or the role or the title that you have. The fact of the matter is that you're going to be influencing teams your whole life, whether you like to or not. Make sense? All right, so let's jam a little bit. These are some of the things that came from the program, and so we're going to talk a little bit about it. But before we get into what the characteristics are of teams and some phases that teams go through, I want to pull from you. All right? So let's get a little interactive, and these walls are okay for me to write on, right? Yeah, right. Good. Otherwise, I'm going to make somebody really upset. So, talk to me about a great team that you've been a part of. Give me some ideas or words or characteristics of great teams. Totally.
Full of energy, speech pad senior. One of the best teams that I've actually been a part of is the SD team that I'm on now. And it's because of the diversity of it in both gender and in ethnicity.
Okay, so the diversity of that team. Something that you love about that team. Excellent. Thank you, Tola. Appreciate it. Yes?
My name is Andrew Rangel. I'm a finance major in entrepreneurship investing. My favorite is my wrestling team.
Wrestling. Nice. We're
Because,
wrestling.
even though it's an individual sport, when we're training, we're trying to push each other so we make sure we beat the other guy.
Okay, cool. So you push each other, right? Good. Excellent. Thank you. Yes?
Aditi Singh, Tam Senior. My residence hall association. I have great communication.
Great communication. Nice. The RA is in the house. Perfect. So great communication. Good. Let's get 3 more. Yes.
Shanti, MBA, Operations and Supply Chain. For me, it's been in a team where we were cohesive, so everybody would just help each other, even if they were not part of it, but they would just come forward and try to help you. That's what I felt was very good about that.
Excellent. Good. So I heard 2 things. So cohesive, meaning you guys worked well together, and I'm also hearing like collaboration. You guys worked well together. Good. So cohesive and collaborative. their spell check on this thing, so bear with me. Yes?
Renisha Martin, HR major, junior. I think the best team is my classmate over there.
Nice. Yeah, come on, all together now. Aww. It's awesome. Go ahead.
We just have like really great chemistry, so it's good.
Chemistry. Cool. Excellent. So we got chemistry. Chemistry. Great. One more. One more. Who's going to bring us home? Right side was pretty strong. Let's go left side. Here we go.
Andy Lopez, senior engineering technology major. I would say transparency. Like we have to have a team that's open to criticism and knows how to take it and how to apply it.
Excellent. Excellent. So transparency. And I like the fact that you mentioned open to criticism. Oh, there's that spell check I was worried about. Criticism. No. There you go. Good, good, good. Excellent. So we've all been a part of great teams, right? And it feels good when we're a part of a great team. Whether it's in athletics, whether it's in an RA hall, whether it's a work team or project team that we can do these classes. There's so many wonderful things we get from it, right? We get to meet other people, other cultures. We get different perspectives. I tell you, that one is so critical for me. When I first started leading teams as a sales manager, everybody thought I was going to hire people just like me. And what I found very quickly is if I had 10 of me, I would drive me nuts, right? And so you have to be able to really get to a point to where you have a tremendous team. You have to know and understand diversity, be open to it, and seek it out, right? Especially when it comes to now, I mean, think, no matter what economy you're from or what economy you end up working in, there is so much transformation going on. And so the way we're doing it now, I guarantee you, a year from now, it's going to be wildly different, right? And if we're not thinking about that, we're missing the boat. So some other things that I heard you guys talking about. Pushing each other, great communication, right? Cohesive team, collaborative teams. So let's transition a little bit, okay? And let's stay down that part. Now let's go the other side, all right? Has anybody, I'm seeing some smiles already. Has anybody been a part of an awful team? Just raise your hands. Let's see how unanimous this is. Yes, right? Okay, we don't want to turn this into like a venting session, okay? This is not therapy. But I'd like to hear from you guys. What are some descriptions, or what were some things that contributed to that awful team experience? Yes.
Shiv Kumar, Tam Senior.
Okay.
Just like a sense of apathy within the people you're working with, like they don't care about what they're doing.
Oh, that's the worst, right? Apathetic. All right. Apathetic. Good, good. Go here, and then here.
My senior city chemical engineering. One of the worst things is when little to zero communication with the team.
Right.
From the beginning and never again.
Right. It started bad and it got worse, right? Yeah. No communication. Good. We went here and then over here, right?
Natalie Boyd, real estate senior. I was just gonna say when people disappear in general, so suddenly, they don't, it's like we were saying, communication, they don't show up at all. Or when they do their work and they turn it in, they're like, oh, I worked super hard on it, but it sounds like a 5-year-old wrote it, so you have to redo the whole thing. So they do it kind of on purpose.
Got you.
Hard, but not
I got you. Okay, so I'm hearing a couple things there. So one is they disappear, they go radio silent, which is kind of a version of the no communication. But what I also hear you saying is that they disappear intentionally, so they can define what their own good work looks like, and then turn it in and say, hey, I did my thing, right? Okay, cool. So no communication. How would you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, how would you describe that second thing, where they disappear and then come back and they're like, oh, I worked so hard?
irresponsible. I guess.
Irresponsible? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not wanting to take, just lazy in general.
Lazy, yeah. Okay, I'm down with that. This is our wall, right? This is our wall. We can put whatever words we want on it. Lazy, irresponsible. Good. And then we have one over here. You, ma'am? You had a thought?
Brandon Johnson, business major, junior. Just a lack of morals and work ethic combined with entitlement.
Don't get me started on entitlement, man. Okay, so I'm hearing three things, right? So, well, actually two things, and then entitlement.
Lack of morals and entitlement.
But, so, no work ethic, right? No work ethic. And the other one was no morals, right? So, like, they just, no ethics at all. Cool. Yes?
Amal Farouk, biology senior. I was going to say closed-mindedness when they just don't want to accept other ideas.
Yeah, closed-minded, for sure. That drives me nuts. First of all, it's so boring, right? Let's just talk about everything we've already talked about, right? It's just so redundant and boring. So, good. Any other thoughts or ideas on awful team experiences? Cool. If you compare and contrast these two lists, do you see any commonalities or like just absolute flip-flop reverses? Yeah? Which ones do you see? Which one? Yeah, communication, right? That's like there was an exact opposite impact here. Good. So where does leadership play into this? We were just talking about awful teams, right? What happened to leadership in these awful teams? Reflect on those teams that you were just thinking about. What happened to leadership in those teams? Yes?
A DDC Tam senior. Either it was a group of leaders and just fighting for to be the utmost leader out of the leaders,
Yeah.
or there was no one actually stepping up.
Absolutely, that's a great point, right? Either all chiefs, no Indians type of thing, right? Or or nobody stepping up to take the role. Yeah, good.
Or when I was taking mechanical engineering, the professor assigned a team leader who did not want to be.
Oh, boy. That gets brutal, doesn't it? Yeah. Painful experience. Absolutely. And so as I talk to you guys about here in the next few minutes on some characteristics, right, you'll see how these things that you guys identified, both the great things that drive great teams, as well as the things that we want to avoid in terms of awful teams, come up in terms of characteristics of great teams. And here's the exciting part, okay? The exciting part is that there's nothing involved here, and I'll just pop them up there so we'll let the mystery go away. There's nothing involved here that can't be learned or adapted, okay? And I say that intentionally because we may be assigned a leadership role, and it may not quite be our jam. It may not be something we feel comfortable doing, okay? And so there's things that you can learn and adapt to so that you can maximize those teams, right? So let's go down the list. Emotional intelligence. Have you guys learned about emotional intelligence EI yet? Yeah? Awesome, right? So EI is up there number one for a very specific reason, is that whether they've went through the class and learned about EI or not, we all have a level of EI. Although it might be very, very low, we all have it, right? It means we sense what's going on with people around us, right? We understand what triggers ourselves. We understand how social awareness plays out and what triggers other people. And in certain cases, we have a vested interest in how that team plays out. So EI is an important one, and don't think that you have to be an expert to manage or lead a team to be effective. It certainly plays huge advantages, okay? Second one, introverts and extroverts. That kind of plays into the diversity, right, that you were talking about, Tola? So having introverts and extroverts. Why would I want to have introverts on my team? What's that?
It works if you're, so sorry.
Yeah.
Well, at the finance major, junior, having introverts on your team can be helpful if you're super extroverted. You don't have to argue with anybody, they just kind of go with it.
That wasn't where I was thinking, but I like where your head's at. Very good. We'll go back and then here. Yeah. Yeah.
Mal Farouk, I would say introverts are a little bit more, they think a lot deeper, so they think a lot, and that's why they are introverted. So they have a lot of different ideas, usually.
Absolutely. Usually.
Usually. They could be thinking about other things.
No, I've got a great story to share with you about that. We had some hands right here in front. Yeah.
I would say that the introverts can offer something along the lines of the best listeners and also some of the greatest leaders of the group.
Absolutely. If you reflect on great leaders you've either studied or great leaders that you've experienced, that is one commonality in all of them. They are exceptional listeners, right? And so the way that they understand it, and that's a great point about introverts, right? They're going to tune things in. And I've got an example to share with you. So the organization that we're transforming right now at Freeman, we just brought in some new resources, really talented resources on leadership development. Okay, and so this one gal that we hired onto the team has this tremendous track record of working with major defense organizations, really transforming, because Freeman's trying to move from this 90-year-old startup company to a global organization. So they already have the revenue streams, but they don't behave like a global organization yet. So we're doing a lot of work there. Leadership's really, really important. So we were very excited about this young lady's background. Okay, so we start. She does great in the interview process. We bring her in, and in our team dynamics, she's just really leaning back, like just really leaning back, far more than what we were expecting. Okay. So I'm like, okay, and I'm a pretty skilled leader, so I'm like, okay, so I'm reaching out to her, and I'm talking to her and trying to give her suggestions on how to adapt to the culture, and how, no matter how wonderful the vision is for leadership, if we don't talk about the current state, we can't get to the new state. And so we're giving her recommendations on spending time with our business leaders and really understanding what's going on. And she's just not moving, she's not taking action. And so I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing wrong, right? What am I doing wrong? And it wasn't until I reflected back on some older material that I had on introverts and extroverts, and I understood that some people just process a little slower. And I need that, right? Because in that process is the stuff that I kind of fly by. In that process is where she's going to find those details that make it stick. She's going to find those details that make it perfect, right? And so what I had to do is adjust my style to better suit her to get what makes her awesome out. Does that make sense? So to your point exactly, there's huge value in having a diverse team, not just of perspectives and professions and experiences, but also personalities. And what's important for us, whether we're leading the team or if we're just playing a role in the team, is to try and leverage that out. And I'll talk about that as we get into phases a little bit. So great job. I like how you guys are interacting. I appreciate that. Nice work. Let's talk about common goals. Okay? Why would a team need a common goal?
It gives direction.
Yeah, gives direction, right? If we're all here in this room, okay, cool. We're in this room together, right on. What's up? How are you doing? It just becomes a hangout. And not many people, some people want to hang out, some people don't. Some people have lots of things to do, some people don't have lots of things to do. So that common goal becomes something we all focus on, all right? That common goal needs to be clear. Or have you guys done some goal setting? You ever heard of SMART goals? Oh yeah, right? I'm sure the leadership team, they pound you about that, right? SMART goals. So having a clear common goal is a very important characteristic of an effective team. And you have every right as a team member, if you are not leading that team, you have every right and you have a responsibility to say, I'm not sure what the goal is of our work. Can I just clarify, what is it we're trying to accomplish today? I tell you what, it's not just something that happens in group works in classes. It happens all the time in corporate America. I fight daily to make sure that meetings are about something with purpose, not just meetings about meetings about meetings about meetings. Oh, hey, we should have a meeting about that. My question is always, what are we going to do in the meeting? What are we going to accomplish? Because they sit there and they spin and they spin. And the bigger the organization, the more they spin on it. Oh, my goodness. So, common goal, really, really important. Time for humor. Come on. Really? Where was that in the textbook? What do you think that we mean by time for humor?
To
Yes? Thanks for being the brave one to raise your hand.
Here on Gale, I think time for humor is a time to be human again. Time to like just share and bond with each other as a team instead of just thinking about numbers and business. Just actually get to know each other, because then that allows people to be vulnerable and be vulnerable, get new ideas that otherwise we can talk about.
Exactly, exactly. Well said. We're all human beings, right? It's a time to be human and to be vulnerable. I really appreciate you sharing that. I'll give you a true story about the team I'm working with now, and the end of the story goes like this, is we all have superpowers, and we're very transparent about our superpowers. But the way we got there is because as we started working together, we were transparent enough to kind of joke around of, oh my gosh, Regina's really good at this. Jenny's really good at this. Ryan sucks at this. Regina sucks at this, right? So it became our superpower and kryptonite. And that is absolutely part of our language as a team. And what's crazy is that our training team, our learning team at Freeman is 6 people. And the revenue of the organization is $2.9 billion. So we are an incredibly efficient training team. But part of that is because we're very transparent about our superpowers, right? And the way we found out that superpower and that became language was we were just joking around about it, right? In the spirit of transparency, we were complimenting each other. And then by being open to that feedback and sharing that, we felt comfortable enough to kind of share our vulnerabilities and say, yeah, do not put a spreadsheet in front of me. I will mess that thing up, right? Put people in front of me, I can work with that. So time for humor is important. So don't take that as I need to write in a bunch of jokes into my next team meeting, right? That's not what that's about. The way Edgar phrased it beautifully is that we're all human beings, we're all spending time together. Be open for humor. And believe me, if you have a kind of a funny joke or something quirky that happens early in the meeting, keep it going. You have no idea if that'll become part of the language of that group moving forward. Okay? Proactive communication. So you notice that it says communication, which is important. We talked about great communication here on great teams, right? And I'm going to make an assumption that great communication was before stuff happened. Is that correct? Usually? Yeah. Now certainly we have to react, as teams we have to react to changes in the environment, correct? So, but generally good communication is clear, it's frequent, and it's usually ahead, right? You're trying to be proactive about what's going on. Hey team, we're getting together, we're talking about this. Hey team, we're going to be moving in this direction, or hey, the deadline changed, or what's going on here, or what's going on there. One of the things you're going to run into in your disciplines as you graduate and move on into wonderful, glorious careers, you're going to have a lot of interdisciplinary work. One work stream connects with another work stream, connects with another work stream. Have you guys had any projects like that here? Where you're working on a big project, but you have smaller little work streams going? In engineering, it happens all the time, right? Yeah. So that becomes incredibly important when communication plays a role, because your team and your deadlines will change, right? Based on the environment. This work stream is running way ahead of schedule, so now we got to pick up the pace. Or now our project is critical to this project, so we got to drop the deadline. Okay? So communication plays a big, big role. Strong leadership. Critical. And I don't want you to think that leadership is some big, robust, ethereal thing. All right? You can lead just by calling out that there's, hey, listen, I'm not sure what we're working on here. And I guarantee you, if you're bold in those moments and you ask that, 2 or 3 other people around you, if you have that question, they're thinking it. You were just bold enough to ask the question, right? So leadership is critically important. You guys are in the right program to help you harvest those leadership skills, okay? Don't think that leadership means that you have to be the CEO or the CFO or the goofball like myself who's comfortable in front of a room. That's not what leadership is. Leadership are those skills and principles that you're learning about, and how you execute them becomes the very cool thing that makes you a powerful person in the roles that you guys graduated. Make sense? You mopping what I'm spilling? Yeah? All right. Cool. So let's move on here. Oh, stop. Are we dead? There we go. Nope. We did that. Okay. So let's talk about the phases of forming teams. All right? So as teams come forward, and this is sourced from Bruce Tuckman's model, so you feel free to look that up. But it's really 4 stages, and you've probably felt these. I kind of like this model because it's feeling, okay, the team's getting together, And then as the team's getting together, there's kind of this storm of who's doing what. Like we were talking about a second ago, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, it's a bunch of headbutting. And then norming, and then performing. So norming happens pretty frequently, right? People kind of settle into their roles and they start going. The performing team, I want you to look at the descriptions here and think about how sweet this would be. How sweet would it be if that team was performing with very little direction? Ooh, it's awesome. It's awesome, right? Because everybody knows their role. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's collaborating, communicating. And so all it is just little touch points. An analogy I use quite a bit is like a spinning plate. Okay? It takes a lot of work to get that plate balanced and spinning. Once you get it spinning, just a little tap. Keeps it going. Okay? So first, let's talk about forming. Okay? What are some of the, like when you get assigned to a new group, okay? New project. What are you worried about most? What are you apprehensive about? You're like, oh boy, another group project. What are you worried about? What's that?
Are the rest of your group members going to do their part?
Okay, yeah, so you're questioning, okay, are they going to do their part, right? Who's driving this boat anyway? Okay, what else are you worried about? The deadline, absolutely, the deadline. And so you can kind of feel this, right? When you're coming into a new group, you're trying to determine, okay, who's going to be a worker bee, who's going to be a queen bee, and where are we going, and what's going on. So that's why they kind of call it forming. So what you're doing there is you're building trust, you're getting a sense of direction and goal. Okay? What's really, really important here for you as PLP members is to expect some resistance. Whether you're in charge of that team or you're just part of that team, expect some resistance. I've always found that stress and complexity is much easier to deal with if I'm prepared for it, if I'm expecting it, if I'm welcoming it. So expect some resistance there while all the worker bees and the queen bees are kind of working things out, while you're clarifying direction and the role that you have to play. Okay? When it comes to storming, that's when things really start to bend and flex. That's when they start communicating on, hey, who's in charge of what. That's where communication gets really driven there. Has anybody worked with somebody who has a personal agenda and it's not really in line? I hear some chuckles. Yeah? I tell you, it happens all the time in corporate America. All right? And you'll hear people as you go on, and maybe you have already with your mentors, there's corporate politics, right? Where, oh, so-and-so's project has to look awesome and shiny and beautiful, so you need to make sure your project lines up with this project, otherwise so-and-so's going to have your head, okay? So personal agendas will happen in the storming phase, and that becomes fairly complicated very quickly, unless you can clarify what those agendas are and how you can massage them into the group work, okay? So the key thing here is don't fear disagreements, welcome them. You guys are skilled, powerful leaders, you guys are capable of working through problems. We have friends, we have families, we've worked through problems before. So don't be afraid of that. Because on the other side of disagreements is a much more powerful understanding and a much more engaged team participant. Does that make sense? So don't fear those disagreements. Seek them out, look for them, say, hey, I feel like we're not on the same page. Can we work something out? I had a real life example in marketing at Alcon, one of the companies I worked with. So we're launching a new product. This particular marketer, I was reaching out to them to try and help them kind of get the sales training in line and get all the sales questions in line. And the second that the marketer saw me walk in the room, it was just like this. He's sitting there at the desk. It's like, oh, here comes sales. Right? Now this is a medical device company, right? Medical device. And so the medical legal requirements around those products are pretty significant, right? A company can step in the wrong area and be lined up for millions and millions of dollars in lawsuits. So I'm very familiar with that and understand that. But this particular marketer had a personal agenda / vendetta